And people have heard of the frog in boiling water, and the thing about that is that some frogs just aren't going to jump out. They're just going to get boiled, you know? So. Hola, amigo. Sí, sí, 3 por 50.
3 por 50.
Gracias.
Gracias.
3, okay, gracias. You always need those.
Bye-bye. He's posing for the camera.
So, but if you were to think like a conqueror, which takes a different mindset, I know, but just to reduce it to its simplicity, to say, if you're going to take over a country, what's the first thing that you would have to do? Well, you could try to overcome them physically. You could do what they've always done in the past, is to storm the king's palace. You could try to get the king to go along. You could threaten him or something. But then you always run the risk that the people won't go along with it. So, how could you get the people to willingly be subjugated? How do you get the people to willingly bypass, for example, their king's wishes and actually want to be subjugated? Well, I think a lot of us know the answer to that is just scare the daylights out of them. Once you've scared the daylights out of people, then they become easy to subjugate, because they're in so much fear that they themselves welcome whatever it is the solution to what's causing their fear. That's exactly what's happening in Mexico. On the one hand, you see the king saying all these wonderful things, but on the street, at the grassroots level, you're seeing a populace that has been completely terrorized. Now, I'm not saying that in comparison to other places where they're even more terrorized. I'm not playing the comparison game. You still have a level of compliance with nonsensical things that people that are in their right state of mind would not normally be doing. I could sit here and read down a list of the things, but I think that it's easy to decipher that, all you have to do is just say, well, let's just pretend, because we have to play this make-believe game. We have to make this game of make-believe in order to, it's all make-believe, but you have to make another separate make-believe in order to get out of the make-believe, in order to get some sort of reality. That sounds really convoluted and confusing, so let's keep it really simple. Let's pretend that it's pre-2020 and you had never heard of anything that people are being told post-2020. Would you, out of the blue, or would people out of the blue just start doing the kinds of behaviors that they're doing now, out of the blue?
No.
No, they wouldn't, because they weren't. They were not doing those behaviors. So what caused the behaviors?
Conditioning.
Something came out,
Fear.
and somebody told them, because they themselves don't know. So there's an amount of confidence game going on there, and no amount of reasoning works with people in fear. And so this big, huge confidence game is totally 100% supported by the fear. So that's the whole foundation of it, is the fear. Once you remove that, on the other side of the coin, once you've got a certain amount, or as much as possible, the population in fear, then you don't need the king to be in agreement. You don't need the king, the president, whatever you call them. You don't need them to acquiesce with the conqueror at all. On the contrary, he could be totally opposed, but it doesn't matter, because the people are in so much fear that whatever the king or the president says is of no effect.
And that's what's
It's
happening.
no longer of any effect. And that's why when you look at movies like The Wizard of Oz, you see and the book The Emperor Has No Clothes, and The Wizard of Oz, you see that the Wizard of Oz, all one needs to do is pull the curtain and see that it's just another man just like you and me. But in this case, what we've got is a grassroots subversion that is implemented by creating a fear that is personal to each individual. And in so doing, you've basically conquered the land. Because if if you're talking about a pine forest, for example, if you're talking about and referring to a pine forest, well, that pine forest has to, by extension, be made up of pine trees. See, if it wasn't pine trees, you couldn't call it a pine forest. Under the same reasoning, once you have a scared populace, then you have a willing populace, and once you have a willing populace, then you've got a subjugated populace. And especially when you use incremental subjugation, and people have heard of the frog in boiling water, and the thing about that is that some frogs just aren't going to jump out. They're just going to get boiled, So, and then some frogs, they're still in cold water, and they see the hand coming and lighting the match and the gas under the pot. They see it right away, and they're jumping out first thing. They're not waiting for the water to get lukewarm or warmer still or hot. So you've got all of those extremes, but you've got that in the middle part still, where people are still in the water and are not sure of what's going on. And so, but when you add that element of fear, then all bets are off. Nobody's jumping out, because they're afraid that if they jump out of the pot, they're going to jump into a fire, and they're going to certainly get burned. And so they're willing to accept an ongoing slow risk, believing that they'll be safe. That's what it is. And there's a very small percentage, they'll only jump out when the water's really hot. So, and then the rest of them get boiled. So that's where that's at. So what it comes down to is trying to help people understand that they are getting boiled. And once they get cooked, they're a cooked frog. They're somebody else's meal. Now that's another thing about being in the pot. You're in the pot and you don't have the vision, because you're just trying to remain safe, because you've been told if you jump out of the pot, you're most certainly going to get fried. If you jump out of that pot, you are most certainly going to die, And so they just stay in the pot where they have the appearance of safety, but they got the walls of the pot right here, and they can't see out, and they have no vision, right? And so you've got to have vision, and if you don't have that vision, you at the very least have to welcome somebody with that vision. You have to have that openness of mind to understand what is being said and accept it. It's not just understanding intellectually, because whoever's figured this out this time around has figured out that once you involve emotion, there's no reasoning. Once emotion overtakes, there's no amount of reasoning that can overcome it. The only thing you can do is just love people and hope that through that love they'll see that you don't have an ulterior motive other than their best interest, because of the love of humanity. And so they don't have that vision, and it takes vision to see that back in the old feudal days was the very same system, that the end result that the current modern day actors are attempting to implement. It's the very same system, it's just they have better tools now. But we still have the human spirit. We still have the human spirit, and there is no boundary that the human spirit can't overcome. That's the thing about the human spirit. And so what they will try to do is extinguish your human spirit. And the way to do that, again, is to get people so emotional that they're not able or not willing to reason. Once you become unwilling to reason, then all bets are off. You're going to be in that pot till it boils. At that point, it's a done thing for you. So, but back in the feudal days, people have asked, why in the world would a peasant, and people have asked the very same thing about the slaves during the slavery period and the latest historical period of slavery that was just 100, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. They would ask, well, why would somebody stay on the landlord feudal system, lords of the land, Lord, God, lordship? So now you know, we weren't originally, based on what has been said, designed to be under the thumb of a landlord. In the feudal system, the peasants were afraid. You see, it's all tied in to everything I've said. They didn't leave the land. You say, well, they had all this land, all this forest, all this space. They could have just left. But they didn't, most of them, not all of them, some of them did leave. But there was in them instilled such a fear because landlord did offer, that was one of the things, protection. Protection. And isn't that what the current system is offering? They say they offer you protection. They say. And they always do say and always have said that, even since back in the feudal days, and I'm sure even much sooner than that, that you will be safe, you will be under our protection, and you won't have to worry. But if you go out there, boogeyman's going to get you. Freedom, liberty, and security, they're like water and oil. You have to create your own security. But if you're basing your decisions on fear, you will always run into the promise of security rather than the faith, trust, and understanding that there really isn't any security, 100% security anyway.
So Frank, according to what you just said, people have been losing their freedom for years and years and years, hundreds and hundreds of years. Little by little, they've been losing their freedoms. And most people think that it's just started just now.
No, it's cyclical. It goes in cycles. So you've got these cycles where ebb back and forth between total slavery and total freedom. You've got.
Well, since we've been alive, we haven't seen total freedom then.
We've seen a sort of freedom that was continuously being tapered off and shaved little by little, and so that people, they're continuously told that they're free. If you have to be told that you're free, imagine if somebody told you that you're rich. If people have to tell you you're rich, you're rich.
Hilarious.
Are you rich because people tell you you're rich? Are you free because people tell you you're free? Are you healthy because people tell you you're healthy? No, you're either healthy or you're not. You're either free or you're not. You're either rich or you're not.
Exactly.
I know
Right.
there's degrees. There's degrees about how somebody can feel. I say, it's a matter of semantics. I feel rich. I understand that. So you've got these two extremes of complete slavery and total freedom. And I would say that historically, as far as recent complete freedom, you're looking at after the Declaration of Independence and after the Civil War. But look at what has happened. Things have become much more complicated, and we now complicate people's lives in the name of safety to such an extent that lives have become unmanageable. And then when you give these entities so much power over you, then you get situations like 2020. That's why going back to pre-2020 is not enough. Pre-2020, say 2019, it may seem right now like a great place to be, and it would be better than where we're at now. But understand that pre-2020 or 2019 is what caused us, it's a cause and effect, to be in 2020. The very aspect that I've just discussed of the spider web, of encroachment, of personal liberty that had been going on, that started accelerating after World War II in the 50s and 60s, in the 50s and 60s, it started just accelerating. So people had pretty much the complete freedom after the Declaration and the War of Independence and after the Civil War. And then slowly, little by little, somebody came in and the stage is already set. They set a match under the pot, and slowly that pot's been getting hotter and hotter, and now we're boiling.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It has to be fought for and defended by each generation.
All right, well, thanks for coming to the channel, and leave us a comment below. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Thanks for coming, and have a nice day.